Hello. Third brief video to help prepare you for your tutoring in the Ed Lab this semester. We're looking forward to working with you in the lab. I don't think I've even introduced Miss Hagler and Miss Walker. They are the other two instructors who will be looking at lesson plans and supervising during tutoring time. I'm sure that you'll meet them over the course of the semester. Miss Hagler's the one that talked with you at lab class last Thursday. Miss Walker will be in there as well. MJ is our front desk officer. She's our administrative associate, and you'll also probably see graduate assistant named Erin and a work study helper that we have named Casey. So we got a full contingent to help you out in the lab. Make sure to pick our brains, stop by, ask questions. We will point you in the right direction if we don't have the answers that you need to get started with your tutoring. I'm going by a PowerPoint that you'll find at uncw.edu/ed/edlab. On the left-hand side, you'll see a tab WCE student, and down at the bottom, it is the first PowerPoint. I designed the PowerPoint for the orientations that we give to our 322 and 340 students, so some of the details may be different, but basic information is there about how you get started on your first day. On slide 19, and I think that's probably going to be the last one that I focus on with you, because your first lesson plan deviates a little bit from the way that the elementary school folks do it. So I'll start there. Your first day plan is something you do have to turn in. Make sure you turn it in to us by 12 o'clock the day that you tutor, so that we can have a record of whom to expect that day. And it was fleshed out for you somewhat, but you'll see if you look at it really closely, there are still some decisions that you need to make as the teacher, even on that first day. The first thing that it tells you to do is to get acquainted, take a tour of the lab. It asks you to choose some interest inventories, and we have several of those in the lab. You can find some online as well. It's just a way to continue a conversation to find out about the student. There is a place on there where it asks you to choose some books. In fact, you don't know very much about the kid. You may know whether it's a boy or girl, whether or not they're in 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th grade. You may know from talking with the parent that what kind of reading issues they have, or if they're advanced, and maybe a little bit about what they're interested in. But that's enough to get started that first day, because I want you to think about choosing books, maybe 3 to 5 books that are varied. You want the table when you get back to it after you do your tour, and after you have a little discussion time with the student during the inventory, to just kind of lay them out on the table and think of it as a little book buffet. If there's a buffet and you walk up to it, you don't get scoops and scoops of every single thing. Well, most people don't. But the student will choose what's interesting to them. And you may have to do some probing questions, right? You may have to say, well, which one of these looks easy? Which one looks hard? Which one would you read if you just had all the time in the world? Now, just because you have those books out does not mean that those are the books that you have to use for all of your tutoring sessions. You just want a starting point. My best advice is to choose a young adult book. We have a section of young adult literature in the lab. Some chapter books, which is more like along those lines of 4th, 5th, 6th grade kinds of things. Maybe a more advanced picture book, and you may not think of using picture books with older children, but there are some pretty sophisticated picture books out there where the story tells a lot more than the words do. Pretty advanced ones. If you're not familiar with those, we'll be glad to show you. Even a graphic novel is an example of that. Not necessarily a picture book per se, but it does have a lot of information in that, and we have quite a few of those. Maybe a poetry book, some nonfiction on a topic that your child would like to read about, a magazine. So I've given you some options, and if you choose, 3 to 5, have them on the table, and then start a literate discussion with your child. Have them tell you which books look too hard, which ones look too easy, and talk about why they think that. Then it'll give you a better idea of what to choose in a more specific way the next time that you make a lesson plan and the next time that you meet. So you're going to spend a little bit of time reading, and it's an invitation. If you invite that student to let you know as a future teacher in middle school what they know, they're helping you out just as much as you are them, particularly on this first day. Then you might want to do a little bit of read aloud, reading back and forth even. Maybe about, 10, 15 minutes of your session might be that. And then you'll see on your lesson plan where it asks you to make a choice about what kind of extension activity you can do. So no matter which thing that you read, you could do something like a quick written conversation. You start a conversation about what you had written and then pass the paper over to the student. So instead of making it oral, you get a little bit of written feedback from them as well and see how they do with writing. You know, you're putting your teacher hat on and watching very carefully what that student does. What else could you do? You could do a draw your favorite part. If art is in their wheelhouse, then you can certainly do that. And then you could also just have some conversation time, some question and answer time. So what'd you think about that book? What'd you think about that chapter? What'd you think about that paragraph? However much you got to read. Remember that the goal here is not to do a formal assessment, but to do what good teachers do in informal kid watching. I think most teachers do that all day long, every day. So that'll get you started. The last thing that you'll want to do that day is to think about some goals. One of the questions that we always encourage our tutors to ask is, so what do you want me to help you with? I've got you for 10 hours and we can do some really neat things together. What can I plan for you? You may not get an immediate answer for the student because they may not have ever been asked that before. But know several times where the students will come back second or third session and say, you know, I've been thinking about what you asked me and what I really need help with is X, Y, Z. So it's always nice to let the student know you're there for them. I think that should get you started. On your first day, you'll turn in that lesson plan by 12 o'clock day of tutoring, and then we'll get it back to you with approval and maybe some notes, some suggestions about books to read or activities to do. And then afterwards, you tutor. You show up, sign in. There's a sign-in sheet, I should say, up on the counter. Sign in and let us know that you were there for tutoring that day. I also think I mentioned this. If you decide to tutor out of the lab, that is in the Curriculum Materials Center, in the atrium, upstairs in the lounge areas, or outside on the courtyard, then you'll want to sign an orange sheet that's up there. I believe the technical name of this color is salmon. On the salmon sheet, it tells us where you are if you're not in the Ed Lab proper. So sign that, let us know where you are. If you need to cancel a session, you can let us know. We'll record that as well. But if you sign in and do your tutoring, take that hour and really get to know that student, then what we'll ask you to do is at some point after your session, flip over your lesson plan and you'll see some guiding questions for reflective practice. And what that means is you'll have a chance to write the observations of what happened that day, the reflections, in other words, what did it mean, and then some implications. How will you use your information to plan another session? Now, I like to say it's a conversation, not a dissertation, so don't feel like you have to answer every question. Just let us in on your mental conversation that you have with yourself. We like to read those and have a little bit more information to go on to make some suggestions for you for next time. And then plan your next session. So when you turn in your second lesson plan, you can find the blank ones in the Ed Lab. We already have them copied for you. But when you turn that in, it should show what you learned from the first session. And I'll guarantee you that over the course of the semester, you'll refine what you expect of that child, and it'll show up in your lesson plans. I think that should get you ready. If you have any questions anytime, don't hesitate to call or email or come by. Pick our brains, ask questions. Ask the questions twice if you need to. That's what we're there for. So I appreciate you listening to the orientation. We'll see you when you are planning for your first session, at least by the time you turn in your first lesson plan by 12 o'clock day of tutoring, and then we'll see you in tutoring as well. Look forward to working with you this semester, and thank you very much.